Welcome to the Behind the Art Inspiration podcast, a sneak peek into the studio practices of all types of artists, conversations for artists and fans of artists who are sophisticated and savvy. I'm your host and curator, Caroline Karp. Let's get to it. Well, hello, everyone. This is episode number, 8 of the Behind the Art Inspiration podcast. In this episode, I'll be traveling from my Safety Harbor, Florida studio up to Western New York in the USA and into the studio of my friend, cut paper artist, Wendy Bale. Wendy happens to be a founding member of the International Online Art Collective. Wendy, I am so happy that you came to join me and so excited to hear about your adventures and in what inspires your work. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. And I am really, really excited to have you guys in my studio today. I haven't been able to invite anyone into the studio for a long time. So this is wonderful.
Great. I know that we talked right before we went on, and I don't know where you want to start, but I threw a whole bunch of ideas at you. One of them was the word that I couldn't pronounce.
You're talking about riparian zone.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Well, one of the things that happened when the pandemic hit was my husband and I were planning on doing a duo show. And so he's a woodworker and he does these beautiful river tables.
Oh.
And I did a whole body of work. I spent about 2 years working on this, doing this group of pieces that are all related to an area that it's an ecosystem called riparian zone.
Yes.
And so this was the postcard. Get it in the right spot here. This was the postcard for the ill-fated show that didn't happen. But and this is my husband's work here. An example of one of his tables.
Gorgeous.
And so it was a pretty sad day when we had to postpone it, but it gave us an opportunity to kind of sit back and retool it a little bit and add some more details to it. So I'm hoping when this show happens in maybe April, if we're lucky, it's at a gallery that's in Warren, Pennsylvania, and called the Prairie Art Gallery, and so we're really hoping that can still happen. He's got a lot of gorgeous pieces, and I've got work that kind of coordinates with it. So he'll do a piece that might be about a river near us, and then I'll have a coordinating piece that goes with it. So a lot of these are my cut paper pieces, which I'm pretty well known for, and you probably know me mostly as a cut paper artist, but I also do a lot of charcoal and drawings. And this is an example back here. This is the one from the piece that is, it's charcoal, and then there's a cut paper element. So that's one of the things I really like to do, is to add a cut paper element, or sometimes I'm adding a charcoal element to a cut paper piece. But the riparian zone, to define it, is the strip of land that is along along the water's edge. It can be a river or it can be a pond, but it works as a filtration system to keep the bad things that are in the soil, contaminants and things that are in the soil, and it kind of works to filter it out so that it keeps the water clean. And this area also is home to many, many different types of birds and animals that are very specific to that area. Some of them also live in other areas, but you'll find many specific creatures and things that I particularly like doing. Most of my work is a lot of birds, probably about 80% birds. I haven't counted it up, but I'm guessing probably 80% is birds. And then I've got, I'll do salamanders and turtles and what else? Anything that's creepy crawly. I like the creepy crawly salamanders, and hellbenders are an interesting creature that is in this area, because I live in Western New York, And it is almost Pennsylvania. We're right on the border. And before I moved here, I had no idea that it was this gorgeous here. There's wild areas that are just they're so untouched. You go there and you feel like you're the only person that's ever been there. I came from the Midwest, and it was more when I would go to a park or something there were always other people, and it felt a little bit more populated. And here there are so many wonderful places to go hiking and kayaking, and I know you enjoy kayaking too, right, Caroline?
And so when you were talking, I was thinking about our mangroves here also act as a filtration system, and they're along the water's edge. And there's all kind of creepy crawly things in there and birds. And I had an observation. So when I went kayaking, there was a bird swimming along with me. I know I told you this story. There was a
cormorant?
Here's the thing. Cormorants and anhingas look and behave very similarly.
They do.
They're different birds. So the ones that I encounter here apparently are anhingas. And
really?
What you have, unless I'm telling this backwards, but I think that they're anhingas here. And where you are, for some reason, they're cormorants.
It's two different birds.
They have a hooked bill.
What color are the eyes? Because the cormorant has a beautiful blue-green eye.
This one is yellow, I think.
Ah, well, it may be an anhinga. They ride a little bit lower in the water when they swim, and they're called the snake bird because they're but they are related. But the double-crested cormorant is also in your area, so you probably have both.
So it's so interesting, and I know that you have made artwork inspired by the cormorant. Do you have that there?
Yes, I have. I don't happen to have it. I don't have that one here today. I picked some other ones, but I've got some other water birds and things to show.
Show us what you have, because I'd love to see some more stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to. I want to talk a little bit about cut paper in general.
Okay.
Because it's something that not everybody is familiar with, but yet if you think about it, think about making snowflakes when you were in grade school.
Right.
Everybody's done some sort of cut paper probably at one point in their life, but this is the most simple form, or I should say the most traditional form.
Okay.
That's a better word for it. But this is actually just a single sheet of paper.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll show you the back of it. This shows you me trying to, you see the parts where I've written solid and all this on it, because when you're working on it, it can be quite confusing to figure out which parts you're supposed to cut out and which parts you're not. But this, I did a drawing on a piece of paper and then just cut out the parts that I wanted to be open. And I had this hanging at my solo show that was this past summer called Paper Cuts. And the reason why I wanted to have this particular type of piece was so that people could see that what they were about to see was indeed just paper. A lot of times people think I'm using other materials or paints or whatever, but it's paper. So, as I said, I do a lot of birds.
Yeah.
So this is an owl. Mm-hmm. And this is a barred owl. As I'm tripping over things here. Sorry.
Yeah, you can see it.
See if I can get it where it's not going to be too reflecty. But this is using numerous types of paper that give us soft edges and crisp edges. And that's one of the things that that helps a bit. What I really like to do is use some of the same techniques that an oil painter would use, where you're using different edges, or an acrylic painter, where you're using different types of edges so that you have a soft edge or a crisp edge that can help the eye define where you want to draw attention and make different textures. And these pieces, this one is very skinny. It's only probably about a 1/4 inch deep, but it's several layers. And
I'm always fascinated by how you can make it look fuzzy, like fluffy.
Well, the way to do that, I mean, a lot of what I'm doing is just basic drawing paper. It's just drawing paper. It's not anything that you couldn't find anywhere at Walmart. But then I'm also using things like, you can hear the crispness of that and see the translucency. See me through it.
Is that vellum?
That is, this is vellum, and this has a nice way of being able to make different edges, and also the translucency allows me to put, it comes in different colors, so I can actually mix like you would mix paint by putting different colors of vellum on top of each other. Because of course I'm buying them already made into a color, but I have a little bit of leeway with that. And then some of them actually have iridescence on them.
Oh, wow.
So I bought this specifically because I was making a Luna moth, which worked beautifully for that, but I have found this to be super handy in just adding like a little touch of highlight. It's pretty fun. And then getting to your fuzzy part.
Right.
This is a mulberry paper, and it's called Anrayu. And you can see how almost fabric-like it is.
Right.
And it has this nice, almost tissue-like quality.
Oh, yeah.
And then it'll have these like little things that hang. I like to sometimes, even if the bird wouldn't have an extra piece hanging out there, I like to just leave these because it makes it have that fun paperiness.
Right.
You know? That's sort of like fuzzy.
Fiberness. It's fibrous.
It's very much like fiber. And it comes in a bajillion kinds of patterns and things. Some of them are geometric. These are very organic shapes. So those are fun to play with. Sometimes if I have a bird that has spots on its breast, I'll put a dark color behind us.
Right.
And then have these little spots, and then I'll layer in some other things to give that effect. So it kind of helps me that there's all these wonderful paper makers that do these things, including paper that has, this has got a silk enhanced surface on it. This is the blackest black I have. I love this stuff. Right. Because if I'm doing a crow, for example, this guy. Yeah. If you can see the shininess that happens on the top there, that's utilizing that silk enhanced paper. There's, I think, 7 kinds of paper. Even though it's just a black crow, it's got some of that vellum that I showed you before in a black version that's right there. And then it's got just basic drawing paper for parts of it, because you want to have that contrast of the shiny bits with the dull in order to make it look really alive.
What does the back of that look like?
You can see my my marks that I use a white charcoal pencil to cut out the basic shape of it. So I'm doing a background, and then I'm layering up layers. So it ends up being, this guy's probably only about 1/4 inch thick. So what I try to do is when I get them in a shadow box frame, I try to get them to appear to be more 3-dimensional than they really are. So a lot of that is pressing edges down, kind of a way to make the paper, while it's actually quite thin, give it an extra bevel so it looks more substantial.
So I think in the bio in the show notes, I wrote that you're also a filmmaker.
You know, I really love video. Who knew?
Yeah.
I was like the last person on the planet who would have thought that I liked video, but I got pushed into it and started doing a Monday movie tradition. So I'm working on episode 72 right now.
And they're so fascinating. I mean, they really are.
Well,
They're
thank
fun
you.
to watch. Yeah.
I try to make them entertaining, and I try and keep them really short. So they're, even though they take me 1 or 2, sometimes 3 days to put together.
But talk about, like, so that crow that we were just looking at, he could have been a character in one of your little short films, because you're manipulating and I don't even know how you do it, but they look like they're coming to life, right?
Well, I do. You're talking about the stop motion. Yeah, I love doing stop motion. That is so much fun. I started doing that for work because I was a designer at a catalog company in Warren, Pennsylvania, and they wanted to do some little ads for showing clothing, doing some different things, or doing holiday things. So I did a few little totally old school. I mean, you can do all of this with an app or very easily. You can do it without it being this old school. But what I was doing was literally taking a photograph,
Right.
and then kind of like claymation, take a photograph and then move it just a tiny bit, what your item, whatever your subject is, and then take another photograph, and then like a flip book, it becomes, after you do 800 or 900 images, you put them all together and you get about a minute. So it's a really, really fun little diversion that I discovered I like to do. I'm going to put another one out for the holidays here, so you watch for that.
Great.
But yeah.
So what do we want to talk about next? Because we've been jumping all around the board.
Well, yeah. Can I show a few more pieces?
Absolutely.
Well, this guy kind of demonstrates he's not done. This is a work in progress. So this guy demonstrates, I will take, for showing you, these are those very same ones, and you can see how those are used. And then his head is not attached, and I purposely did it that way because I haven't quite decided what his expression is going to be.
Right.
But that's sort of part of the fun of it, is figuring out what they're gonna do. But there's his head, and I love working with eyes. That's why owls are kind of fun, because they have very big eyes. But I usually will put a lot of extra time into getting the eyes just right. So there'll be sometimes little teeny tiny pieces of vellum or some metallics in there to get that little catch light to show what the eyes are like. And a good example of that one is, let's see if I can get this to not reflect the computer. So this is a cedar waxwing. I do a lot of feathers. That's a passion of mine. I do enjoy replicating feathers so that you can have a legal collection of feathers. It is actually illegal to pick up feathers in the wild unless they're game birds. So that's one of the reasons, particularly like if there are some birds that are extra protected, like eagles. So it's important, for instance, that this piece I have over here with the heron feather, you wouldn't want to actually collect that feather. So I replicate them in paper. And I've had people look at them and say, but that's a feather. And I say, yeah, but it's made out of paper.
They do look very realistic.
I try to make them as absolutely realistic as I can, which is sometimes I do add a little bit of charcoal or a little color to them, because some of them have details on them that are pretty hard to replicate. For instance, this one, I actually did use charcoal in that one.
I see it
on the feather part of it. But, and then let's see. Here, we'll take a break from birds because I don't want you to think I do only birds. Right now, I do have mostly birds in my inventory for some reason. But this is this is a fish that in the Midwest we called it a crappie. Here in New York, they call them crappies. I'm not really quite sure, but I'll call it a crappie because I think that sounds a little nicer. But anyway, this is a single sheet of paper for the body of it, and then the fins are the vellum, and then there's all sorts of vellum. If I turn it backwards, you can see the back side of it.
Yeah.
Has got, you can see kind of into it.
Mm-hmm.
So this is about a 3-inch frame.
Yeah.
And it's filled with the different layers of all the seaweed in there to get the effect of a fish swimming.
And so would the artwork be affected by what color the wall was behind it, you think?
Well, that one is kind of intended to be, yes, it would. In that case, that one is intended to be set on a shelf and let there be some light behind it. I had one person ask me if it would be okay to put it in a window, and I wasn't really sure. So I took a piece of that vellum and put it on the window in my studio, and I had it there for about 8 months, and it didn't change the color.
Okay.
But I wasn't 100% sure that would be the case over many, many years. So a lot of people who do cut paper do light boxes where they're actually illuminated in the back. I have not explored that yet, but it's on my list.
Okay, interesting.
And this is one of my favorite birds. This is going to be the subject of my Monday movie that I've got to finish up today.
I've got to do mine.
And this is the green heron. And you'll say, well, but it's really blue. They are kind of mostly blue, but I think because blue heron was already taken, they had to come up with another name for the green herons. But
that's the one that I've been looking at that I keep saying I love the blue.
Yes, yeah, and that blue, if you look at the bottom part of it right there,
yes,
this part, that is 2 different shades of that silk enhanced paper. That paper is made in Italy, and it's kind of influenced by the fashion industry. Okay. And so all of their colors are, sort of fashion oriented. So they have like fashion green and all these funny names for them. I can't think of them right now, but they're very intense, vibrant colors. So, which is a little different for me because you know me, I really do love black and white, but I bust out the color whenever I can.
Right.
And lastly, is I took this one out of the frame because I anticipated we'd have some issues with the glare. This is a kestrel, and this one is a little bit, it's fairly thin, but I've popped it off of the background a little bit so that you get a little bit more depth to it. And you can see as the shadows are kind of going across there, you can see the depth of the bird. These are put in a 1-inch shadow box, so I'm limited. I can't have them too crazy coming up, but I try to get enough depth to them so that they don't just look like a flat piece. So this is truly my favorite. I do a lot of different styles of cut paper, but truly doing the more sculptural pieces like this is my absolute favorite thing to do. So
and are they I mean, when people ask me how long it takes me to do something, it's you know what I mean, but are they time consuming or not?
They can be. It's really kind of depending on the piece, but I've had little pieces, little tiny ones that I've spent days and days and days working on. One time I spent an entire evening making, do you know what duckweed is?
Yes.
Yeah, the little teeny tiny leaves. I spent an entire evening making 200 pieces of little tiny embossed duckweed.
Wow.
So I sometimes, I'm my own worst enemy. I could have probably, I don't know, used a paper punch and just punched some holes in a piece of paper and made it more easily. But instead, I spent an entire evening doing that. Sometimes I'll get bogged down on, I have a piece that you may have seen that is a nest. And there's a paper mache egg in it. I spent 4 nights making that paper mache egg. Never did get it perfect all the way around, because this is why I don't do 3-dimensional stuff. I was trying to get that egg, and it's a tiny egg. It's, this big. And I finally got it good on 3 sides. I thought, okay, I'll glue it on the lumpy side. But sometimes it takes forever. Conversely, I did a piece of another green heron. It was a larger piece than the one I just showed you, but that one, I started it in the morning and I had it done by afternoon. And it's a big piece. It went together super, super quick. And I don't know. It's really unpredictable how long they're going to take. So
Right.
you never know. If the paper cutting gods are with me, then it goes quick. But otherwise, I go down a rabbit hole.
Now, I just want to mention just very briefly that just our collaboration in the International Online Art Collective, and how that started off as something small but with really big ideas, and ended up growing. I think it's growing right now, but just that, it's a place or a group of artists that I think I've been watching everybody in the group growing through this whole time.
And getting to know each other, which has been a really interesting aspect of it, being able to communicate with people from all over the world.
Right.
And so many of our thoughts and concerns are so much alike.
Exactly.
That's been what I've noticed the most about it, is that it has broken down a lot of barriers as to what is the concern of somebody in Chicago versus someone in Cambodia or someone in Milan or wherever. We all have the same drive and emotion. We're all individual people, but there is a common thread that goes through there that I think has really been a beautiful outlook that we've gotten from this particular project that we've worked on together.
Yeah, and we were really wide-eyed at the beginning of this whole worldwide pause at them in over in Europe being in lockdown, and we were like, oh, what's that like? Remember that? Remember that point in time? We're like, what is that like when you can't go anywhere? Well, they're in lockdown again, and here we are, woo, still out there. So it'll be interesting to see how, end of this year and beginning of next year happen. But to be able to be all together and even in a group show, that would just be so amazing.
I think there's a big future for us. There's many directions we can go. It's just going to take time to see where it happens.
And we're all tweaking ourselves and making our practices better, and during this time. So it's quite fascinating. Well, if you don't have anything else to share with us, do you?
I don't. I think my table is empty. There's a lot of stuff that you can find on my website if you want to see more.
Where can we find you? I have it in the show notes too, but why don't you tell us?
Excellent. WendyBaleArtFirst.com.
Mm-hmm.
So it's art1st, and that's my website, and I try to keep that fairly up to date with. There's a lot of stuff from my most recent show that is still on there in a viewing room, and there's plenty to look at there. And I love it when people follow me on social media. Instagram is Wendy_Bale_art first, again 1st.
Mm-hmm.
is my Instagram handle, and then Wendy Bale Art First without the underscores is for Facebook. And you can find me on YouTube. I have a very tiny YouTube following, but I would love it if anybody would subscribe, because I work really hard on those Monday videos. I'd love it if more people saw them. But that's just Wendy Bale. We'll keep it simple for that one.
And then the International Online Art Collective has a Facebook page, which is International Online Art Collective. And then we have an Instagram page, which is it different?
It's at International Online Art, I think.
Right. I think we can
have to put that in the show notes and make sure it's right.
In the show notes, yeah. And then also we are starting a LinkedIn page. So we'll see how that goes. But and you can learn more about that too. It's kind of a fun little project. But I'm going to say thank you to you. Don't leave, because when I end the live broadcast, we can keep chatting. But I want to thank everyone out there for listening as I share. In March of 2020, I had a vision of starting the International Online Art Collective, a diverse group of artists from around the world who value the power of art to inspire, provoke, and heal. The power of this group is in connection, and you can see our connection. That's how this happened. And from this, a podcast was born. First interviewing these artists, and then branching out to all types of artists. In fact, next week, I'm going to be interviewing Margan Alexander, who is the composer who composed music to one of my paintings. So that's December 12th, which I think is is it next week? I think it is. Might be the week after. What is the date today? The 6th?
The 6th.
So it is next week. Okay. And hey, I also wanted to mention that my next solo show, which is called Sales, Souls, and Sparkles, is coming up on January 21st of 2021. And what's so great about this is that it will be virtual, so people can join me from all over the globe. So to all of you artists out there that have been wondering what it would be like to do a virtual show, you can kind of watch me do it, because I'm really nervous to do it. And you can watch what it's going to be like to just put that all together. I might even do a special streaming about that. So anyways, take care. And thank you again, Wendy.
Thank you, Caroline. It's been really fun, and it's been great to have everybody come visit me in my studio.
Yes, and I love it. And we'll come back. We'll come back in the new year, especially when it's getting close to your show that hopefully will be in April.
That would be wonderful. You're welcome to come anytime.
Okay, thanks.